Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Dr. Gemma, and welcome to episode 201 of the Cognitive Podcast. And we're very excited here because we are less than a week out from the Cognitive Fiber Retreat number 10, which is pretty amazing. Your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or go to our group on Ravelry. And if you go to our group on Ravelry, you will see the information thread for CFR10. And the very first post has the gathering of information as I know it now. And I think it's up to date, except we have lost one person from the list and added one person, and I need to go in and update those. And I apologize to the new person that I have not done that yet. You know who you are, but by the time you hear this, you will be getting ready to go. And you will know that it's all okay, because I'm going to go update it now. Wow. Can you hear how crazy I sound? That's kind of what this week has been like. Every year I learn a new thing about CFR. This year I learned, oh heavens, do not run a race the weekend before. It did take a lot of the pressure off, but I did run the race, and that was Saturday night, the 21st. And if you go to the show notes, you will see a picture of me and my best running buddy holding up our medals because we both finished. And he ran after already running 2.5 miles in the morning on a very hilly course over at Griffith Park. How he managed to run twice in one day is beyond me, but he did finish a little bit sore. Me, I got there, I lost control, but I will talk about that later. You can see we're happy, and I'm happy because I beat my own best time on that course, which isn't saying that much, but still it was pretty good. So there we go. There's the picture of us looking victorious, holding up our medals in our race shirts. Me and my favorite running buddy, my 18-year-old son. In the warm thanks department, I want to thank one of our sponsors, Nanette Wake Studios. Also, she's on Etsy, but I gave you the link to her website. She has been so incredibly generous to us. The goodie bag prizes, I'm not going to name them here, but it is named in the show notes. So if you want to see what she sent, but they are raffle prizes at this point, so I don't want to name them too much out loud. We got some lovely raffle stuff. That's what I'm going to tell you. Also, remember, we will have raffle prizes from our vendors. So our 3 vendors are each throwing in a skein of really gorgeous stuff. So I can't wait to raffle things. But I was so grateful to Nanette Wake when I saw all the care she took that I went over and I bought a skein of yarn from her. Now, I have to admit, you know and I know every year I do Christmas socks for myself, and I did not have any Christmas sock yarn, and I don't usually even think about that till well after CFR, to be honest, and CFR is usually mid to late October. Well, I went over to see Nanette Wake's stuff. Her stuff is beautiful, exquisite, the prices are great. There it is. It is a fingering weight nylon merino. It's so beautiful, and it's called Dashing Through the Snow. It's true, today, not that I'm giving into temptation, but I may have wound it into a nice big ball that I'm looking at with enormous contentment as it sits on my desk. Meanwhile, CFRX. I think we're at 31. I think we're good on the payments. Like I said, I have to do a little bit of updating as I record this, but I think we're good. I think we have what we're going to get. And I have to actually look because we've lost our Danny this year, which is quite a loss. But we have added a new person who's coming up from OC, I think, with that crowd. So we'll just have to see. Meanwhile, I have some new folks from my Reddit group who may be listening. We are a group on Reddit a little bit overly devoted to the Woobles. So if you are the new folks from Reddit, you are very welcome here. If you want to see what I'm even talking about with the Cognitive Fiber Retreat, you will see near the top of the show notes in red type, Cognitive Fiber Retreat 10, 2024. All info is right here, and there's a link. It'll take you over to the main information thread on Ravelry in our Ravelry group for this podcast. And everything you need is right there, along with listening to our wonderful people chime in about what they're doing and what they're bringing. And right now, the hotel, I've just heard from our Loretta, which is another piece of good news, that they are no longer offering our group rate. If you didn't sign up by now, you're a little bit blitzed. I am not real happy about that. They told me that they would allow for late signups, but at any rate, they're there. Please remember, we have some excellent classes. No, I have not set the order for the classes yet. I'm probably going to do that Friday night. I suspect we're going to kick it off, if Steffi Jo is cool with that, with her class first, and then go into the bag class. And I think the other class, we have a Tunisian workshop and a Steeking class. And I think another Steeking class. I think they all sort of feed off each other. So I think the two ones we want to get started with are the class, the Steeking Everything class from Steffi Jo, and then we want to get on to Ariane doing the crossbody bag. From there, like I said, you can go to the other classes too. I hope you will, frankly. And also remember, you can get some hooks from Oink at the retreat. She's bringing, I believe, Tunisian hooks. And so far, basically, based on our projects, we have Ariane using a G and an H hook or an H hook for her pattern. Pachki's recommending a G hook. And if you're going to wooble with me, that's a G hook. If you're going to do the Abba's sock yarn cowl from our mini skein collection, that is a D as in dog hook. There is a hook conversion chart. Please keep in mind, we have a table to basically trade and exchange yarn any size. And then we have a separate exchange for mini skeins of fingering. And there's no size limit on any of this. Just bring what you want to bring. At the end of Saturday night, I guess it'll be, or Sunday, probably Saturday night, I will collect whatever is left of both of those, and I will do what I do with it. I will donate it. My guess is the bigger yarns will go to Mother Bear. I'll mail them off as a donation. Any smaller yarns, we'll work that out. That may also go to Mother Bear for all I know. Also, I'm going to see Jasmine the following week, but I have a severe limit on what I can carry on the airplane. But Jasmine, if you're listening, Jasmine and Gigi, if you want those yarns, please let me know, because I'll either mail them to you, because I know, Jasmine, you have all the kid groups that you're teaching, or they'll go to Mother Bear. So there's no waste and no loss there. I understand Steffi Jo's bringing a lot of acrylic, which I'm saying that in that tone of voice because, you know, those of you who wooble, acrylic size 4, just saying. Okay, meanwhile, having said all that, those are our free projects. We've got the wonderful basic granny square bag from Ariane, and we've got the free pattern for the basic granny square pattern from Pearl Soho. I have to go look at Ariane's pattern. I really have to apologize to you for this, Ariane, because you may have the basic granny square in there. I've been so crazy busy, so I'm sorry because I'm not as up on this as I should be. And this one is kind of important to me, so it sounds a bit lame when I say that. But I would like people who crochet to be able to do this bag. Meanwhile, that's a G&H hook. You can use any size hook that you get comfortable with for the granny squares. It's up to you. Pachki is teaching Tunisian, G hook. Woobling, if you're going to wooble with me, G hook. If you're doing the Abba's sock yarn cowl, D hook. And the hook conversion chart is there in the notes. And I hope I didn't just repeat myself. I am so tired, kids. I had a full working day today, and my Mondays have a lot of challenges. Meanwhile, having griped at you enough, what is on my hooks and needles, you may wonder? Well, I finished, as I promised last week, I finished one of my Franken socks for this year. I was calling it the Still Bored socks, and realized I'm doing them so slowly that these are going to be my Halloween Franken socks. And may I say, if you look at that sock, you will see that it is living up to the role. It's a beautiful sock. As you can see, I used leftovers from last year's mini skein exchange. I used in this to make the stripes. Each stripe is 10 rows wide, and the top 2 stripes are in a 1x1 rib. The bottom stripes and the rest of the foot are stockinette. And the foot is in a hard-wearing yarn, and I use all sorts of things for this. So you pick whatever you consider to be a hard-wearing yarn. In this particular case, it is the colorway Violas, and I believe it's Premier Sock from Joann Fabrics. But it's one of the harder-wearing socks. I saved the fancier yarns to do the legs and the stripes because that takes less yarn and it gets less stress from walking. And you can see the effect I get. It's all stripes all the time, but I want the harder wearing stuff down in my shoes, and that works for me. Meanwhile, in Wooble Land, I got going on the Halloween woobs, and you can see I have all the main big body Halloween woobs there. That sounded weird. So if you look at that picture in the show notes, you will see there is Luna the Bat with Steve the Frankenstein behind her. Harry Potter, he ain't Halloween, but he's close enough. And I'll explain why he's there in a minute. And then we have my Halloween cat from the official collection. I made my own Minerva, but this is their version of the cat in purple called Salem. Same thing as Minerva. And then closest to the camera, we have Snooky the Ghost. These are all extremely easy patterns to make. The only one that has any degree of challenge is Steve the Frankenstein, and I wouldn't call it a lot. The only thing about Steve is there's enough embroidery on him separately that he goes a little slower than the rest. There's color changes. So he's a little more advanced than the others. Why, you say, why is Harry Potter in that picture? Because right in front of Harry is the cauldron. This is a pattern from last year's Halloween collection of the Woobles. So there is the cauldron. It looks way more complex than it is. It's actually pretty easy to make. So don't be intimidated as I was by it. And in the foreground, of course, we have the candy corn. What people have been doing with these a lot, if you go over to the various Wooble places on Facebook or on Reddit, people are making little candy corns and putting them in the kids' candy bags. One hopes that doesn't lead to tragic outcomes, really, when one thinks of it. Okay, I'm just joking. And there's also a little pumpkin that I haven't made yet. People have been giving away the pumpkins. It's kind of cool that a lot of people make these and give them to the kids on Halloween in place of the candies. So the kid gets a toy instead. Somebody I know made a bunch of the little ghosts. They were just adorable. So that's where the Halloween mini whoops tend to go. I will be decorating with them any minute now. In progress, the stash toss is at 27 in versus 49 out because I have not gotten on to the sweaters except the endless vestuary, which I haven't touched. That will take another, I think, 4 skeins out. So I'm working on it. The Fairy God Ferret is not in process. He's just sitting there. I haven't done anything with him. He's on my desk, but I love him. It's like having a buddy on my desk. The Franken socks, as you can see, I'm now on the stripes of the second sock. And I am on stripe number 3 of sock number 2. But I don't have a picture in it because I have a picture of the completed first sock instead. Haven't touched the lakeside cardigan. Haven't touched vestuary. Haven't touched spinning. And this takes us on, of course, to strategy. Well, I know you guys might be getting a little tired of all the running stuff. But I had one of these crazy weeks where I had all these overwhelmed patients, and it does take a toll on yours truly. So you can imagine how hard it must be for them. But I had a lot of people talking about being overwhelmed. Now, you know, at moments like this, I start talking about making lists and doing things 15 minutes at a time. But when you're in the middle of a run in the dark, it's late at night on a Saturday night, everybody's kind of tired, even in the run. The excitement is over. You know, we all got into the starting line and all that. Everybody's just kind of running down now in the starting line, waiting for the gun to go off for the 5K. And at that point, you see the energy level dropping. And as you run, you realize it's late, it's dark. People are a little scared running in the dark. Not everybody brought sufficient light for themselves. So I learned a new one, the simplest one of all. Just keep moving. Okay, so you can get into all the lists that I talk about, the can-do list, the worry workbook. You can get into my strategy 15 minutes at a time for things. But you know what I learned at the race Saturday night was sometimes you just have to put one foot in front of the other. And here's how you learn it. There's a lot of people who've never run this, but it's exciting. They're running it in the dark on this very, very beautifully groomed trail. So literally, you couldn't have tripped if you tried. I know, I tried. And we're kind of in the dark, but a lot of people are running. Everybody's got a glow stick, which isn't enough light. They encouraged us to bring flashlights, which I did, so I had an easy, peaceful run. My son had a headlamp. All right. But it was out of the park, and then we went downhill almost a mile and up a short, steep, and I mean steep ramp onto a concrete bridge across this one road, very broad bridge. At that point, everybody was walking. I started well back. I could not get up in the starting gate close to the front because there were, 499 runners enrolled in the 5K. The 10K was not that many, it was 99. But even so, the 5 and the 10K went out just in front of us. We were catching up to some of them. They were doing 2 laps of the course. We were just doing 1. So by the time you got to the bridge, I was starting to pass people pretty routinely. But on the bridge, with traffic coming, heavy traffic, both directions, people just walked, and they didn't think. They walked right across the whole width of the bridge so that those of us running had to play dodgeball to get around them. Nonetheless, I was going pretty quickly. And I just started yelling, don't stop, just keep walking, don't give up. Because I could hear people already after 1 mile saying, this was too much, maybe I shouldn't have done it. It's true, I did the shaming thing. I yelled, hey everybody, I'm 64 years old, you better get out of my way, I'm still running. I need room to get down this sidewalk, I am a fat old broad. Everybody started laughing, people got out of my way, and they were really gracious. But I did make a point of saying my age. And by the way, they all cheered, which I cannot tell you meant the world to me. But I made my age a part of it because I wanted to say, you can do this. You can keep going. If I can do it, you can do it. And I realized at that point, I felt so bad for them because some of these people did not look particularly physically trained. I'll put it that way. And yet walking 3 miles in that dark in the warmth, it was a very warm night, was really very nice. You know, and I didn't want anybody shamed, but at the same time, you got to let the runners get through. So I was trying to keep people going all through the race. There was one girl flagging, so I was shining my light on the ground in front of her and saying, come on, run with me, run with me. I'm not really that trained. I'm 64. You can keep up with me. I kept trying to encourage people and do that sort of thing because that's the old school running that I was trained in. But, you know, what I really got was, at the end, they had a big table with all the medals just laid out. Nobody put the medal around your neck like they do at Disney, just hinting. And I realized we're all getting the same medal. There's no difference whatsoever. At the end, we all won a medal. We all had the medal. Yeah, the picture's in the show notes. My kid and I are wearing it. It's a cute medal. It's kind of ceramic-y looking. It was nice. It says 10 because it's the 10th anniversary. It makes it look like we ran the 10K. I'll get over it. But by the end, I realized motion is everything. I sat in the parking lot after my husband and son left in their car. I sat in the parking lot afterwards, and I was doing what I think of as staging, which is I was putting everything where it belonged. I was taking off my running gear that comes off. Obviously, I left my shorts and shirt on. But I mean, I took off the bands I wear around my knees and the armband for my phone and my wristband, my road ID, that sort of stuff. I was taking it off and I was putting it on my belt of my running kit where it lives, where all this stuff lives so I don't lose it. So I sat in the parking lot, and quite a while after I'd finished, maybe 40 minutes, and people were still coming in. And I could hear people cheering, and I thought, it's really key to remember, they just won as much as I did. Their family and friends are there for them. They are happy. They have completed the course. They met a goal. We all got the same medal. Okay, so yeah, there were people who won the actual race, and they're over in the results. And yeah, I got my results. But the really important thing was just keep moving. The people who came in the back came in, just like I did. Motion is everything. When you feel down, when you feel like you can't handle things, remember, The finish line doesn't move. You may get to it more slowly, but if you put one foot in front of the other, you reach your goal. You reach your finish. Just keep moving. So if you're listening to me do these strategies, and sometimes you feel like, oh, Gemma, that's too much for me, and you feel overwhelmed. Yeah, I know, I've been there. Okay, motion is really everything. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. The finish line, even though it feels like it's a huge distance away, it really doesn't keep moving. If you have a goal and you know what you need to do, just keep moving towards the goal. And even if you feel like it's taking a long time, that's okay. Motion is everything. The one thing I know about people who are depressed or people who are so anxious that they can't move forward is that lack of motion is what's going to defeat you. If you just keep moving, eventually you do cross every finish line there is in life. So you have to just keep moving. And I'm grateful to my sister and brother and other runners out there this year who reminded me how important that is to me as a clinician to say to my patients, just keep moving. Just keep moving. If you feel ready to do a can-do or a to-do list, that's great. But the important thing is set a goal and take one step at a time. Crawl if you must, but motion is everything. Or as we say in the slow runner world that I live in, slow is better than couch. Anything is better than sitting still. So I guess that tells you here and I'll shoot that I did finish the Be the Light race. So now you can rejoice because I'll stop talking about it so much. And it was just hilarious. I did not run a good race in my normal way, and yet it was faster than I've ever run that course this year. You may remember last week I was happy because I got up to 15-minute miles. Well, I finished with 13.9 miles, 13 minutes, 9 minutes per mile. So I actually beat my own time. That is because I lost my marbles the first mile downhill. Everybody was charging forward. I was in the back, trapped among the walkers. I could not stand it. I charged. Yeah, it's true. My first mile, I am not lying, 10 minutes. I didn't know I could even do that. Needless to say, my second mile, which was largely uphill, hurt. My feet hurt. And I did it anyway. And I realized I was doing the second and third mile pretty much at my normal time, even though it was a little bit painful by that point because I'd run so hard on that first mile. And remember, I'm used to a soft surface, trail, or broken roads. This was hard, well-packed asphalt. So I got a PR for me, and I had a blast. My son, of course, passed me at the 3/4 mile mark. I was yelling at everybody in the first mile. I was telling people, on your left, move to the right, get out of my way. I didn't say it quite that way, but I was trying to be nice. But I was trying to explain to people, walking people go on the right in this kind of thing. You let the runners go by on the left. It's the easiest system. And people thought I was race staff, which I thought was even funnier. And I kept saying, okay. They'd say, I'm sorry, we didn't know. And I'd say, that's okay. This is how you learn. So I tried to be real nice. So at 3/4 mile on the downhill, my son passes me, and he's really ripping. I mean, he was easily doing like an 8.5 minute mile to my 10. And I just yelled, that's my son who's passing you. And people laughed, So it was very nice. And it went as well as it could go. So I was a bit undisciplined, but I was disciplined enough to do the last 2 miles at my normal pace after really going way too fast on the first mile. If I had the chance, I'd probably do the same thing again because it was good to find out I could move that fast. I really needed the impetus. In the show notes, you will see, for the last time, the banner for the Be the Light. And then you'll see my husband's picture of me coming up to the finish line. I am that blurry person in green in the front. And of course, as always, I am disappointed that I just can't take a picture in which I look thin. This is because no matter how much weight I lose, I have short, stumpy legs. And you know what? They carried me to a 5K. So after that, you can see what I have upcoming. That next week I have CFR. That is not on my race list. I do hope to run Saturday morning. I do hope to get up early enough to go out and get a run because where we will be in Santa Clarita is so available to trails. Like we are so on top of the wonderful Paseo system there that there's no reason I can't go out and get in a pretty decent run. If I wanted to, in fact, I could run the route that I ran this race on. We're that close to it. However, after that, on October 5th, I have the Rock and Roll 5K. By the way, the one thing I learned, I'm probably going to stay with 5Ks for a while. I'm not ready to move up to a 10K in a month, which I would, a little more than a month, I would have to do. But I'm going to do the Rock and Roll 5. And then I have the Monster Dash coming up in October. The Santa Clarita Marathon, I have it down for the 10K, but I'm thinking of asking them if they'll switch me over to a 5K. It's probably still early enough. Jingle Jog up in Palmdale, up in Loretta territory. In fact, practically across the street from her house in December. Loretta, if you're listening, that was a pretty broad hint. I'm just saying. The Mardi Gras Madness on February 23rd, 2025. The Sugar Daddy in June of 2025. I am hoping to throw in at least a turkey trot. There's 2 available. One is an easier one on the weekend of Thanksgiving week, but I like to do my turkey trots on Thanksgiving morning. It's a heck of a way to start a break. So we'll see how all this works out, but I am looking for monthly races. Meanwhile, in the fluffy books, not much. I'm reading my way through Flavia Albia, A Fatal Legacy, and I'm enjoying it. It's fun in the good old-fashioned way that those books are, with all the wisecracking and smart talk. So nothing much there. I have to admit, I'm still listening to I keep forgetting the name of this, The Secret Society of Tea and Treason. I feel like I'm getting the first part of that wrong, by India Holton. I'm listening to it at night as I go to sleep. I'm almost finished with it. So nothing too exciting in the books right now. Waiting for the next Verity Lark to come out in October. Okay, something I really like. I am not joking when I say aspirin. Aspirin. I take one before bed every night to reduce minor swelling. Aspirin, because I'm having sinus attacks here in the hay fever season. I take one of those at night. It keeps my sinuses from swelling. I know, because when I don't take them, ugly headache in the morning, sinus headache. So I have to admit, I have been just making my way through the world with one aspirin every night before bed. And I did take one before the race because I knew I was going to pound my brains out on that hard asphalt. And yes, I did. And I loved every second. Thank you, Bayer aspirin people. It was worth it. I also still have the voter protection hotlines up for the different states and districts. So please, please, please get your state's voter protection hotline there, or your district if you're in Puerto Rico or DC. Please look it up. So if you see any kind of interference, you can get involved in that. Okay, so put a lid on it, and something I really like. I rolled them together. And what I did was I put in something I like, which is my first crocheted shells in acrylic, sweater shells. Okay, and this happened in 2019, I think. And I made a whole bunch of these that I was trying to figure out how to crochet a sweater the easiest way, because you knew it would be much faster than knitting them. But I don't quite like the hand as much in the way I do it. Now, Lex knits them, our Lexicon. She knits them beautifully with Tunisian, and hers have a beautiful hand. But I'm not so big on the typical hand of a typical crochet as opposed to a Tunisian crocheted sweater. But I wanted to learn to do this, and I taught myself that year. And I found at Joann Fabrics this beautiful yarn. It was Lion brand, and it was acrylic, and it was called Cupcake. And it came in these broad stripes. That is, it would crochet into these stripes. And if you look at the picture, you will see my first and favorite of these. I loved that colorway. I fell in love with just that combination, the very Southwest combination of the turquoise with the oranges. And as you can see, that is a pretty easy sweater. If you crochet and you look at that, you know it's all half double crochet. So I thought, for put a lid on it, I would give you a recipe for this sweater. And this is as easy as it gets. Now, knowing what I know now, you could just make 2 of these. I made the main body 16 inches long, and then I went wider for those little sleeves. But you don't have to do that. You could just continue the main body width. And when you get to the armholes, you simply go across instead of going around, however you want to do it. Even so, I made 2 pieces from the bottom up, and the only seams are the shoulder seams, which you can crochet, and I think I did, to be honest. And then I sewed down the sides, which is a little more challenging because you're in stripes. So I just said dash it all and used that turquoise because I love it so much, and said it'll make a pretty contrast down the sides. And the sides are under my arms anyway. So there's a picture of me wearing this. And there is the recipe. So you're going to make 2 of these. You start at the bottom. You use DK yarn, a size 3. I used a G hook, that is a 4.0 millimeter. So I was trying to get, in half double crochet, a 20-inch wide piece because I have about a 40-inch wide chest. You know how to get your chest measurement, right? It's the band size of your bra plus your cup size. So for a 36, D as in dog, 36 plus A, B, C, D. D is 4, fourth letter. So 36 bandwidth plus 4. And so that's going to be 40 divided by 2 is 20. That's how you do the math on that. So I ended up experimenting, and I ended up chaining 77 because I'm going to do 75 half double crochets, and that worked perfectly on me. And then I just did half double crochet. And I started at the bottom of the skein of yarn, which was I had just a little bit of that brown you can see at the bottom. And I just used the whole cake, I believe. I don't remember how many yards are in the cake, but you can find it in my Ravelry projects. If you look, you can search under vest and you'll find it. So, okay, so then all half double crochet, and I did 16 inches. And the stripes worked out beautifully. I did on the second piece make sure I was matching the stripes. So I started the second piece in that brown. I had a little too much. I ripped out. I did all the brown, counted how many rows, then I ripped out the excess and matched the rows on the first one. So it all worked out beautifully. I did match the rows just a little bit, but that wasn't hard to do. Okay, so 16 inches of length for the body. You end on a wrong side row and you tie it off. Because really, who cares? It's crochet. Tying it off is a little bit meaningless here. So then I went to the sleeves and I started over. I chained 9 and then I attached with a slip stitch to the main body and I did a half double crochet across, and then I chained 11 because remember, 2 of the chains will get caught up as you turn with a half double crochet. So then I crocheted back. So now I had the 75 original stitch width plus 9 on each sleeve. Okay, so 75 plus 18, what is that? 93. Now you keep going, 10 inches for the sleeve section from the bottom to the top, and I tied it off. I sewed the side seams with the wrong sides together, and my top line was now 25 inches wide. So I just measured the neck opening I wanted. I decided I wanted a 7-inch wide neck opening. I folded it in half. I went 3.5 inches out, and then I basically sewed it shut. Then I crocheted. After I sewed, on each side, I sewed 9 inches, I believe, to leave a 7-inch wide neck opening. And then I crocheted with a single crochet around that finished neckline to reinforce it and stop it from stretching out of control where I had done the shoulder seams. This is extremely easy. This thing is like a weekend project. Took me a little longer because I was working full time. Hey, sue me. So that is both my recipe for put a lid on it, even though it's not food, and it's something I really like, which is that set of sweater shells. I thought I was going to wear them in the summer with nothing under them. As acrylic, they're a little uncomfortable that way for me, so I wear a cotton tank underneath them. I like to wear them between the summer and the fall, or between the spring and the summer, where I want a little more warmth in my body, but I still am okay going without sleeves. So let's get on to the blather. Well, of course, I was very wound up last week. It was my own fault about this race. I get wound up before races. It's really annoying, but I do it. So, of course, as always happens, on Friday, the PC that I use for my job, and I really use it, I see patients on it, crashed. Big time, couldn't get the image to come up. I didn't believe it was crashed. I could hear it starting, but it just wasn't working right. Later on, I found out it was the electrical connection, and I sorted it out. But on Friday, it was crashed, so I had a very tense Friday. I had to use my iPads to do the sessions. They work just fine for this, by the way. They work just fine. They don't last as long on the battery, and I can't have them turn sideways to charge. So, I have to go between the 2 iPads, but it worked just fine. But I was very tense about that. So I got up Saturday morning saying, okay, at least that's over with. I caught up on my paperwork. So now I am ready to have a day preparing for this race. You don't need a day. It was going to be at 5 after 7 at night. But I instead spent the day booting up my newest computer. You may remember a few months ago, I began to get warning signs from my trusty Lenovo PC that it was aging out, and also Windows is no longer supporting it. It's on Windows 10, and they want you to go to Windows 11, but Windows 11 has been known to be buggy. So what I did was I said, just get a good high-capacity computer that will hold Windows 11, and that will be my last working computer as a professional, because I plan to retire when I turn 67 in 3 years, but who's counting? Okay, so I thought one more computer should get me through the end of my career. Boy, that feels weird to say. Okay, good enough. But I managed to boot up the new one, and of course, I sorted out the problem on the old one and said, you know what, though? I am going to format this guy. That the very fact that the old PC was getting kind of persnickety said, you know, this is the time to load it up with everything I've got on there, and then just fold it up, put it back in its box, and say, I'll see you in another year or two. As long as the old one lasts and can work with the programs we're using on my job, I will use it and save the new one, because there's no reason to do anything else. So that's what I did. So that took me basically half the day, and then it was time to go to pick up my race packet and park my car. And I was really worried about getting a good parking space. I didn't want to park far out from the race. I will know next year you don't have to worry about that at all. There's so much parking, it's not funny. And a lot of the people running are just walking over from the local housing areas. So, you know, it wasn't a big stress. But I got there early and I couldn't resist. I went over to a place called Baby Tuna up on Copper Hill Road. And I had the most beautiful lunch and I couldn't resist the picture. The other reason I have that picture is you may see a cup that says Coca-Cola. I had a Diet Coke. And I felt pretty sporty, so I had 2 of them. May I remind you that you don't ever want to meet me on caffeine. Never, never, never. I had 2 of them. So I was wound like an overwound clock spring by the time I got over to the race site, because I'd walked over to Baby Tuna and I walked back, and that helped to burn off some of it. But man, I was high as a kite. But meanwhile, the boys show up, we hang out, my son and I work out our packets and what we're doing and transportation and all that. And my husband says we could go back to Baby Tuna. We need dinner. Well, I had a very late lunch. I ate mine at like 3 o'clock. So I said, all right, but I'll go over with you. Okay, brace yourselves. I had 2 more Diet Cokes. Holy Moses. And you wonder where I got that first 10-minute mile from. I was so coked up. No wonder I was yelling and having a good time with everybody and all that. Oh my gosh. Well, fortunately, that's probably why I finished the race. But I would say after about 2.5 miles, I was normal again. But it was a huge, I don't want to call it a mistake, but let me put it to you another way. I didn't fall asleep till 2:30 in the morning. I'm usually someone who goes to bed these days about 9:30 at night. Yeah, I got an extra 5 hours out of those Cokes. But I don't know, maybe it was meant to be. But there is a picture of my phenomenal late lunch, early dinner. It is tuna and salmon sashimi over incredible salad stuff. It was amazing. Okay, now on to the news. Well, I've talked already about CFRX, but late breaking news, we got our Loretta back. I contacted her. She just wasn't aware this was the weekend. I'm good. I'm really good. As long as we get her, I don't care. I don't care if I have to go up there and carry her on my shoulders. We got her. So the really great news, Loretta will be coming to CFRX. So I'm very happy about that. And I am in the midst of the last minute preps right now. Actually, as soon as I finish editing this, I start on that. Because there's not as much to do, because we don't have all the goodie bag stuff. We don't have all the prizes and all that. Much reduced because, as you may not know, Loretta, if you're listening to this, Etsy kind of booted me off and said, they didn't boot me off. I can still use Etsy, but they said, stop asking for this stuff or we will boot you off. So the last minute preps are a lot simpler than they used to be. And in the meantime, you can see a picture of me in my new reading glasses, one of 2 pairs. I went, among other things, to a pharmacy and I picked up new reading glasses. No longer will I pay Lens Labs to make them when I can buy them far cheaper just off a rack. That pair was overpriced because of the designer frame, and it was still only $40 as opposed to like $60 from, even America's Best, which are cheap. So there I am in my new glasses and my running shirt, looking pretty sporty on my last run before the actual race on Saturday night. And of course, this leads me to say now the next challenge, we get on to CFR. And at CFR, I do not know if I will be recording a podcast episode. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if episode 202 will get recorded next weekend. So just so you know, if you don't hear from me, you may next hear from me after I return on October 6th. But I will be in San Jose on October 5th. I have a very early morning run just in front of the door of my hotel. This could not be easier, up by the convention center. And then, frankly, I just take a bus over to the Knitmore's place. I'm really pleased about this. I just could not make the drive anymore. I sat and I figured it out and said, I'd have to leave Friday. And I'm not talking about the race here. I'm just talking just to get up to San Jose. I'd have to leave Friday, spend Friday night in Bakersfield, which is how I did it the last time. That works great. And then drive the rest Saturday morning. And even still, that's going to be like 3.5 hours. That's a long haul for me. And then I arrive exhausted. And then to get home on Monday, I would have to leave Saturday night. Like, it's not worth it. So I instead booked a flight. And then said, well, gosh, as long as I'm doing that, just book a flight in, get a hotel for Friday night, and go run the race early in the morning, because it is literally out the front door of the hotel. It's just astonishing. And then looked up the bus routes and said, this is ridiculous. I can get a bus pass, put it on my phone, load it up with like $20, and all of this is doable. So I can pick up transit from the airport to the hotel. I'm not sure if the hotel even has a shuttle. I didn't see one. So I'll just take, it's called the Clipper, over, and then I just catch a bus over to the Knitmore's. I mean, I just realized this is just as easy as anything I would do if I drove, except I'm only on the road, so to speak. I'm in the air for about an hour. So that could not be simpler. So I'm kind of looking forward to this. And also it means I can leave Sunday morning and still get home at a reasonable time so that I'm not wiped out for seeing patients on Monday. So look out, San Jose, here I come. Under that, you will see the community resources, including our CFR 10 sponsors. Right now, Nanette Wake and Cutiful Yarns are there. I have one more sponsor who I have to go through, and that will be added after I finish recording this, but it will be in the show notes because I know I have it, but I buried the bag from them. Okay, so I'm just going to insert this in because I'm so floored. So I opened that last package for CFR 10. It is from Rachel Roth of Wishful Knitting on Etsy. And she sent us the cutest little stuff. I can't wait to show you guys these. And she sent like a whole little baggie of them for me with all the wonderful patterns. And these are, I gotta ruin the surprise, they're knitting needle protectors, point protectors. And there's one of a cat with glasses on a pile of books. And there's another of a gray cat in a basket full of yarn balls. Oh my God, I love them so much. So yes, you will find the link in the show notes. The links are under community resources closer to the bottom where it says CFR 10 sponsors. And it's Nanette Wake, Cutiful Yarns, Rachel Roth, Wishful Knitting, Laser Sheep Yarns, Oink Pigments, Lisa Souza Dye Works. I would never leave you without links to these wonderful people. And oh my gosh, this is so precious. Okay, I'm going to stop whimpering now. Back to your regularly scheduled end of podcast. And after that, our sponsors are, frankly, our wonderful vendors, which means I need to put their links in there too. It just hit me, so I will add their links as well. On the calendar, well, let's just face it, underneath all the stuff for the Santa Clarita Valley, you can see what we're all excited about here. Somebody texted me today and said 5 more sleeps. I'm so excited. Yes, CFR 10. It was a great thing to text to me because it reminds me that this is important to a lot of people because I get a little overwhelmed at this point. So thank you for that text. So yes, on the calendar under all the Santa Clarita local stuff, you will find CFR 10 at the Courtyard by Marriott in Valencia, right off the 5 at Newhall Ranch Road on September 28th. Yay! And another link. I will be there on the 27th. We're getting Loretta in on the 27th. So that's really good because that means I'm going to try and corral her to go to dinner and catch her up on everything because we've been a little incommunicado But, that's what friendships are. You don't have to be in each other's face, but we're going to have a lot of fun catching up. In case you don't know, last year, we stayed at the brunch place for like 4 hours. They literally asked us to leave after CFR 9 because we just sat there catching up. It was unbelievable. They were begging us to go because, bottomless cup, coffee and tea, yeah. Meanwhile, after CFR 10, not like I can really imagine it, on October 5th is the rock and roll for me. On October 26th, the Monster Dash, the Santa Clarita Marathon 10K or 5K on November 10th. I have the 28th through the 1st off in November for Thanksgiving. Hopefully there's a turkey trot in there. And Romule, I will do a jingle jog up in Palmdale. And Romule itself, December 21st to somewhere around January 1st. So Minerva gets the last word. And you can see Minerva crashed there. She is very happily lying cuddled up next to my bathtub. And when I take a bath, she often gets there, and I have a nest of towels for her there between the bathtub edge and the window. And she will often get on that ledge and just lie in her nest and keep me company. So you can see her crashed there, because that's where I am. I came home Saturday night. Sunday morning, we were all in a bad mood. My husband got sort of heat exhausted. My son had run too hard and his leg was hurting, and I was just aching and tired. And so I have to tell you, Sunday was just a crash. And so I'm pulling myself out of that, and I will be motivating myself again with CFR because I really, really can't wait. Cannot wait till Thursday night because I'm not seeing patients on Friday. And I'm really, really looking forward to just packing everything up Friday morning and driving over to the Courtyard in Valencia. And I am just going to have an easy, fun morning. If things go really well, I will pack Thursday evening, and Friday morning I will just pack my running clothes, go over and do my morning run, and then park myself at the hotel. We will see if I'm really ahead of the game, that's what I'll be doing. I am so looking forward to this. So Minerva's last word, just crash, man. Just let yourself slow down and get ready for this coming weekend, which is the annual Cognitive Fiber Retreat. Full bore party. I can't wait to see you all. If you haven't gotten your shots, well, it's a little too late if you're going to CFR. They won't really have kicked in, but you'll all be pleased to know I can't give you COVID or flu. Yay! So, do whatever you got to do to take care of yourself. But in the meantime, remember, everybody, we are a community. When you take care of the community, you are taking care of yourself individually. And so everybody, please stay safe. Take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Maybe even a little slower. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.